thinking about it, and I figure now I'm going to be able to do this. I am considering doing a stadium guide style of entry for 30 MLB teams. This is something which I have seen when I used to play All-Star Baseball, and I would love to do it here. I love stadiums. I love ballparks. I've been following stadiums and new stadiums and renovations and everything since I was a kid. There's something fascinating about a ballpark and designs and the magic that's held there. So, where else would you rather start with? Basically, started the trend of neoclassic ballparks. So, in this year, Camden Yards has turned 25 years old. It was built from, I believe, the late 80s into the early 90s, and it finally opened in 1992, April 6th. So, let's look at the facts. Let's run down the facts here for just a split second. It says here that it's located on 333 West Camden Street. All right. It's only blocks away from Babe Ruth's birthplace. And also, it's built in the style of the early 1900s unique design, which is situated near downtown Baltimore's Inner Harbor area. So, what does that mean? Basically means that this ballpark takes itself after the style of classic baseball parks of past time. It was one of the first ballparks in baseball around the late 80s, early 90s that got out of the cookie cutter style of construction and built for actual solo team use. Between the mid 60s and the 70s, there was a great fad that was going on where owners would build stadiums for multi-use. They created multi-purposeful facilities. They were nicknamed cookie cutters because they were all circular and they all looked the same. Riverfront Stadium, Veteran Stadium. You have one in Pittsburgh. You had RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. That housed the Senators and the Redskins. Pittsburgh had the Pirates and the Steelers. Cincinnati Riverfront Stadium had the Bengals and the Reds. And you had St. Louis, which was one of the last ones, which housed the Cardinals and the then NFL St. Louis Cardinals. That then moved to Phoenix in the late 80s. So when Baltimore moved from Memorial Stadium in 1991, they wanted a ballpark that was going to basically bring back the spirit of classical baseball. And they moved from a stadium that was for multi-use. It was home to the Baltimore Colts from 1953 to 1983, and the Orioles stayed there from 1954 to 1991. Memorial Stadium wouldn't close down entirely until the late 90s into the 2000s, where it was then demolished, and is now home to senior citizen homes and recreational ballpark there. So it started off on a good foot by moving into the metropolitan area, which a lot of baseball ballparks didn't really do at the time. A lot of your ballparks were in the suburbs. A lot of them moved in rural areas to bring people out. What Oriole Park at Camden Yards did was it took the ballpark and moved it into the heart of the city, which if you see a lot of your ballparks today that are being built, they're all built in the same fashion, and they're all built in the metropolitan area. So this is something which Camden Yards does take credit for, and it did start a lot of the copycat stadiums which you see now. You know, Busch Stadium 3, I think Busch Stadium 4 is built like this. You have Coors Field, which is built like this. You have the new Braves Stadium. You have the new National Stadium. All of those stadiums pretty much have the same aspect that this ballpark has. And it's the first one to do it. At least one of the first ones. And honestly, to every single fan who's ever come to this stadium, or ballpark, I keep calling it stadium, but it's a ballpark. But every single fan that's come to this ballpark has nothing bad to say about this place. This place has a good seat no matter where you are. If you're in standing location, you have a great view of the field. You have a great view of the diamond. If you sit on the 300 level, you have a good view that overlooks the city. 200 level, you can see the baseball players. It's a beautiful place. This is a ballpark that has a unique, majestic design to it that cannot be taken away. So it does get credit for that. Now, the most unique thing about this ballpark is that this ballpark was built in an industrial area in Baltimore. Baltimore, at the time, was known for its industrial work, steel mills, a lot of transportation, a lot of factory work, a lot of plants was built. The location prior to Camden Yards, the stadium which you see here, was built a plant, which was taken down, torn down, which was a part of this old warehouse. This warehouse was a part of the train station that used to be the Sports and Legends Museum right outside this ballpark. It since has closed down, but it was around in the early 2010s, but it's since gone now. They never mentioned where the location would be at, but that's where it used to be. But all those things are still there now, and it was home to the B&O Railroad, which the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, which a lot of Orioles players used to take back in the 50s and the 60s in their time there. So there's a little bit of characteristics. There's a little bit of history everywhere you turn in Baltimore. This ballpark is not far away from Babe Ruth's birthplace. The famous baseball player nicknamed the Great Bambino, who was born in Baltimore and is most famously known for being a New York Yankee. Which, interesting fact, the New York Yankees of now were once the original Baltimore Orioles. That team moved to New York. They were the New York Highlanders at one point, and then they became the New York Yankees and started that 27 championship dynasty. So there's a lot of history and a lot of factoids where if you look around you will find it. And that's something that I wanted to do when covering this thing about this stadium. It's a stadium that has seen an ALCS. It's seen an All-Star game in 1993. It hasn't seen an All-Star game since, and it hasn't seen a World Series yet. It'd be nice to see it happen sometime soon, but who knows? Baseball is a weird game. Now, there's a lot of things that can go on and on and on about this ballpark. The food, which has its own unique characteristics, from Boog's Barbecue to grabbing a crab macaroni and cheese hot dog. But one of the most unique things about this stadium is the fact that it's a ballpark that's a quarter of a century old, and it somehow stays relevant with the times. Constant renovations, refiguring or refurbishing the seating areas, and taking what would be outdated and making it new. These are things in which this ballpark takes pride in. New scoreboards, as you see here. Trying to keep relevant with the times. They put a new fan area up there where it's like a bar and a grill and things like that. They implemented new statues which came out in 2012 for this ballpark. It's little things like that that adds great detail to a ballpark and gives it life and keeps it relevant as time goes on. And it's something that, as I've gone to see Orioles games from time to time, and been in this ballpark, it's a very unique uh, feature and a very unique stadium to be a part of. I mean, obviously there's a little biasness here because I love this ballpark, but I don't know. It's a timeless ballpark, and I think the reason why it's very unique is because it's taken itself away from what would be popular at the time and was very original and created an image for itself that it's very rare to get stadiums like that. You know, if you really think about it, like look at the Braves ballpark in which they just left was built in 1995. So they left a 25-year-old ballpark. You know, how can you keep originality? How can you keep characteristics of a stadium that you know, with a fan base if you're leaving after that long? Oriole Park hasn't, it's still staying around. It's still around for people to go to. Fans of opposing teams love it here and everything. I think that, in fact, you really can't build anywhere else in Baltimore because Baltimore is a very old city, but it's a very tight city, and there's no room to build anything. You would have to build out, but most of Baltimore City deals with building up instead of out. So, some factoids about this thing. Where's some factoids about this? The home plate to Camden Yards was taken from Memorial Stadium and is used. Oriole Park at Camden Yards was built for $110 million. Ground was broken in 1988 and was opened 4 years later. Capacity, alterations to the ballpark has actually reduced in size. When it first opened, it was 48,041. Now it's been broken down to 45,971. King Griffey Jr., the cover boy for this game, was the first and the only person to hit the warehouse when he hit a home run during the 1993 Home Run Derby. So this is such a great coincidence to get that in there. Utah Street. There has been more than 138,000 plate appearances at Camden Yards, with only 79 ending with a Utah Street home run. And the first one was recorded on April 20th, 1992 by Mickey Telton. These are some of the facts courtesy of WBAL.com. So, after looking it over, after talking a little bit about the stadium and trying to get the most out of this so that people can understand how accurate is this ballpark compared to reality. How accurate did this stadium get? How accurate did the crew make this stadium? Honestly, I can tell you, through convenience, I'm able to go to a couple of Orioles games every year in and year out. I will say they did get the batter circles accurate. There are no logos in batter circle. Let's see what we got here. That scoreboard is now LED. It's now a smart screen or HD screens. I don't even know what they call them anymore now, but they're definitely not that. Those two scoreboards come from an older model at Camden Yards, which they don't even have anymore. Legends Park they have over here. That's accurate. They have all the statues that are there. Bullpens look accurate. The fence is right there accurate. They have the ivy, the clear wall that used to be filled with ivy. It's good. Most of the issues I have with this ballpark in this game um, comes from the fact that it's missing certain things that to the untrained eye you would miss, but to someone who actually goes to the ballpark, you would see them. They haven't upgraded most of the stuff that's been around this ballpark, like the flight deck. Like there's a flight deck right there in the 200 section level, which is just like there's a label on it and stuff like that. Uh, they added guardrails to the ballpark, which is good. Standing area is nice. Most of the stuff is like with the warehouse, with Dempsey's. There's a Dempsey's um, logo that's on the warehouse that's missing. I think the grass is accurate. That's where Boo's Barbecue is, right there. That green thing behind that. I mean, there's only so much accuracy that you can get with a stadium, but I mean the landscape out back. There's a few buildings that are missing from scenery, but those are things which I emailed about some time ago. I think about like 2 years ago. But this is my first outing doing this stadium thing, doing this stadium tour type of talk. I know I missed a couple of facts. I know sometimes it seems like I'm around with a lot of stuff, but I like doing this because I love stadiums. I love ballparks, and there's nothing better than when springtime hits and summertime hits, and you're sitting in a ballpark and you got your barbecued pulled turkey sandwich, or you got your popcorn or something like that, and you're just you can smell the popcorn. You can actually see this game happen in real life. I suggest everybody, if you can, get to a baseball game and see it in life, see it in real life, and your perspective will change about the game. Even when I play this game, it makes me want to go see a baseball game. So when I see stadium accuracy, it's gotta be accurate to me. Like there's gotta be escalators that's missing from that and stuff like that. But I think like where we're at right now, they did a good job when it comes to this. I think I feel good about it. I feel confident. See how they do with the stadium and stuff. I think it's my fault also because I'm not that far from this ballpark. Like I'm just a beltway away where I can just go down and see it. But that's my video about Camden Yards. There's only a few